Welcome to the Entrepreneur Lifestyle Podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs from around the world to discuss creating a great lifestyle whilst boosting business success.
Today I'm here with Kul Muhay, diving into the entrepreneurial journey and building up his business. So for those of you who don't know Kul, let me explain a little bit about him. So he served for 32 years in the UK police service, of which 2/3 were spent at a leadership level. In his life as a police leader, he's overseen complex and varied departments and commanded critical and major operational scenarios. He's been coaching leaders for over 20 years, so 2 decades, and now works with a global client base of business owners and senior leaders using his unique style to help them to not only further their leadership potential, but to feel more fulfilled despite the challenges in their roles of running a business. Using his deep knowledge of emotional intelligence, he's worked with the police forces, universities, fire services, and the oil industry in the UK, the UAE, Qatar, India, and Ukraine. Oh, there's just so much here. I'm going to keep going. This is amazing. His passion for leadership is evident in everything he does, and he has a personal coaching client base all over the world. And last 2 things is that he's got an event called Ignite Your Inner Potential, which has been held annually and has grown to 300 attendees in just 2 years, which means it's grown 50% every year. And he's also an author of a popular book, Smash the Habit, which draws on his experience of overcoming long-held habits. And he believes that physical habits are just symptoms of mind habits. He now coaches, speaks, and trains on the art of leadership internationally. Kul, welcome.
Thank you. What an intro. What an intro.
I felt like I was just reading a book. We were just listening. It was great fun.
There's no questions to ask now. That's it. Done.
Well, I'm glad you know about Kul, so we'll see it now. So where should we start? Let's first start with this. So what moved you from the police force to becoming a speaker and a trainer? Because not many people do that, especially in the police industry. And I work with a detective, and she says, yeah, I have no social media. We're not told to have anything online and things like that. And you've gone from police force, everything okay, to hidden to this sort of global superstar. How on earth did you make it happen, and why this change?
Well, firstly, everything that your friend has told you about the police service being so constricted is so very, very true. If I told you that in my entire adult life, from the age of 16 years old, was spent in this bubble called the police service, and it is a bubble because, we sort of face dangers together. We see each other every single day. We have each other's backs. We fight with each other. We all the things that you do when you get to know people over 30 years, it becomes like a family.
Yes.
And you don't really have a sense of what's going on in the outside world, aside from the things that impact on you. So global events would be aware of, crime and criminality would be aware of, and things impacting on society. But how the world operates, how people think, it's not really something that we got involved in, because at that time, we weren't really encouraged to get onto social media. Now, I know a lot of police officers who are on social media, and the times are changing, but we were so restricted in our personal lives from the moment that I joined to the moment that I left, so restricted in our personal lives, because the unique thing about being a police officer is, certainly in the UK, is that you're a police officer 24/7. And in the UK, which is quite unique in the world, if you're a police officer in one part of the UK, you still have jurisdiction in other parts of the United Kingdom. So even if I were to go on holiday to, say, the north of England or into Wales or to the very southern tip of England, I'd still be a police officer with all the police powers that I would take with me. So you were acutely aware of that all the time. And you were also acutely aware that a lot of people that you may have locked up or you were looking for, or you'd had a run-in with at some point in time, may also be monitoring your social media. So you were always extremely careful what you said, did, and wrote on social media and elsewhere. So for me to come away from that world to now being massive on social media, I'm all over social media now, and living a very open life on social media is, when I think about it, it's just like opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
So when did this all come to me in terms of I needed to make a transition? I don't think there's a one single point, but there were various touch points in my life where I realized that I needed to do something. I was destined to do something beyond the police service. I think the police service was always going to be a part of my journey. You know, it's something I dreamt about from the age of 10 years old, but I knew I had to be a police officer. But then after the police service, there was something even bigger for me to do. And I guess that the key thing where I made that fundamental decision that, yes, I'm definitely going to do this was around about 2008. And, you know, we had the global recession around about 2008. And in the UK, probably like every other country in the world, that financial recession hit us hard. And the government were having to make all sorts of savings. And, you know, the biggest savings that they could make was in the public sector, and the police service was affected just like anybody else. At that time, I was managing a department of about 300 to 400 staff. Now, some of these people I'd known for 20 to 25 years. It was huge responsibility. I had all my other operational command responsibilities. I was a gold commander in charge of major crime, major incidents, critical incidents, but I also had these 300 or 400 people to look after. And when you're told then that you have to make year-on-year savings of £1 million, you know that the only place that's going to come from is your people. And you also know that you're going to have to do exactly the same job, if not better, with less staff.
Yes.
So I remember having many a sleepless night, knowing that I was going to impact on people's lives by letting them go. And I also made the brave decision, or crazy decision, some might say, of being the person that was going to look them in the face, some people that I'd known for a couple of decades, and let them know that there was no longer a job for them because we're going to afford to do that. And I remember thinking at that time, this is not being a police officer anymore. This is not why I joined the police service. This is leadership. Yes, absolutely it is. But it's leadership that's been constrained by circumstances outside of our control. Yes. And I want to be more in control. If I'm going to make an impact on society, I want it to be a really positive impact on society. And even as a police officer, essentially what I was doing was reacting after the event had occurred. So I was always looking for justice. And I realized that people do some of the dark things that they do in life because of where their head is at that moment in time. So maybe, I just wonder, maybe, could I reshape the thinking of individuals and perhaps prevent crime and criminality and ignorance and hatred going forward? And that's where I really did decide, I know when I'm going to leave. I know what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to prepare myself for it. And that was around about 2008. I left in 2014. And I spent the next 6 years getting my qualifications, raising my awareness, digging down very deep into as many books as I can. I really immersed myself in the learning. And, you know, I hit the ground running. I left on New Year's Eve, 2014, and I had my first client on the 1st of January, 2015. And never looked back.
You had a long wait. Sort of celebration on New Year's Eve. You wake up the next day and you're like, right, new career, here we go. Okay, amazing. And when people look at, you know, you going from the police force and then within, you know, 4.5, coming up to 5 years, you then set yourself as a very established person in the industry in the UK. When someone sees that, there's so much that we don't see. We see the end goal and we see what got you started. This in-between thing here, right? How did you actually go about building yourself up in a way? Obviously, you immersed yourself in books, you have the knowledge. And I mean, there's a lot of people, and especially ones that I know as well, who they know a lot of things, but they can't relay that to people. They can't really get it out there. So how were you able, especially because you were in the police force and you weren't aware of perhaps a lot of these things anyway, how did you make those sort of first steps in really moving that forward?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, you know, the first couple of years for me were really by luck more than choice. You know, I ended up coaching through referral, somebody in Saudi Arabia who had a very connected network. They saw the results of the coaching. They referred me on to somebody in Pakistan. They referred me on to somebody. And before I knew it, I was going on to Canada, to America, and purely by referral. So it's more by luck than chance. But I knew that I had something because I was having incredible successes with these clients. And also by way of referral, other people began to hear about me, and I started getting more active on social media. I ended up going to corporate organizations in the Ukraine, in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, and did some work around leadership then. And leadership is something I've always been passionate about. But in those first couple of years, you're absolutely right. There are lots of people in the world who have lots and lots of knowledge, but struggle for two reasons. They either don't know how to get it out there, or they don't have a plan. And I was the latter. I didn't really have a plan. So for 2 years, I sort of bumbled along, and I was so excited, because I'm a very excitable person anyway. I was so excited with this incredible new life that I got, that anybody who was in my field of mindset, leadership, emotional intelligence, who had a slight connection to the world and they were speaking my language, I'd connect with. And I thought, well, if they think like me, then they must be the right people for me to connect to, and therefore I need to work with them.
Yes.
So I ended up collaborating with a few people, but that was my biggest lesson in life, that just because somebody is like-minded, it doesn't mean that they're like-valued. And therefore, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will work to the same levels or depths that you'll work with. And this caused me, for the first 2 years, such stress, really, because I was trying to do things. We'd agreed to collaborate. I created products. I might have taken 6 months out to create a whole series of video courses and things like that, and only to find at the end of it all that they had done nothing. That I actually gave up. I actually dissolved my business, and it was my wife at the time who said to me, is this it? Is this the level of your passion then, that you are prepared to give up that quickly? And I realized she was right. And within a few more days, I'd set up a whole new business. And I realized that what I wanted to do was, if I was going to do this, I needed to have a plan. And I didn't need to work with all and sundry. I needed to be very, very careful. And, the one quote that comes to my mind that has really guided me is Jim Rohn, who said that you become the average of the 5 people whose company you keep most. Yeah. So I've become acutely aware of the company that I was keeping. The other thing that was right at the forefront of my mind was values. So I needed to go on a journey to really name my values, to understand my values, and then to look for similar values in anybody else that I worked with. As it happened, those people were closer than I thought. They are people within my own city, people who believe in me, people who helped me launch my first ever Ignite Your Inner Potential, where we only had 70 people. That was in 2017. And they've stayed with me on the path. And, in 2018, we grew that number to 200. 2019, we got 300. And in just a short 6 or 7 weeks time, we shall have 450 people. And we are now looking for a venue in 2021 where we aim to have 700 people. And I have the same crew, my same volunteers, who don't get any monetary recompense. They just have pure passion and belief in what I'm doing. And they're on the journey with me. And that's been really, really fundamental.
Yes. And just to relay that to the audience. So it seems that, we often have passion to begin with. And I see a lot of people, they go out there like, okay, let's do this. Mm-hmm. And they move forward. But if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going, then it's definitely difficult to make the movements there, because you're very busy, but you may not be making progress. 100%. And so with regards to, sorry, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's an old saying, isn't there, that you plan to fail, you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yes.
And I guess that was, if there's one living example of that, it was me. I hadn't got any plan whatsoever. Now I plan everything. And traditionally, when I came into this industry, people are always saying to me, always know your why, always know your what, don't worry about the how, it looks after itself. And I think that's a bit of a lie. And I think if you are really strategic and really intentional about creating something that's powerful, absolutely, you need to know your why. You need to know your values, your purpose. You need to have a solid foundation on which you can build your success. You need to have absolute clarity around the what. What is it that you're trying to achieve? You need to have it in 1080 clarity inside your head. And then you need to have a plan. Your plan, your strategy becomes your how.
Mm. Okay. And when you started moving forward, right, and you set up this new business and you came up with a new plan, how was this plan different from the original plan that you had? What were the differences there and the key distinctions?
Key distinctions were it was a plan.
Yes.
But no, in all seriousness, on this plan, I had a three-year vision. So I knew where I wanted to be in 3 years' time, in as much detail as you can plan for 3 years' time. But then I did some reverse engineering, and this is something I do with my clients. I stepped back and I said, well, if that's where I need to be in 3 years' time, where do I need to be in 2 years' time? Where do I need to be in 1 year's time? And when I got to the 1 year goal, what I then did is strip that back down into 12 monthly milestones. And then I even stripped back those 12 monthly milestones. Each month I had a weekly milestone. So suddenly it becomes less overwhelming, much more achievable. You don't get frozen by procrastination as a result of the overwhelm that you experience. Yes. Things just seem so much more easy to do. Every single day, I have my non-negotiable tasks that I do, the people that I contact, the content that I build. I'm big on LinkedIn at the moment, so I have a completely different strategy for LinkedIn for my corporate work. So I know exactly what I will be doing on LinkedIn, how I will be communicating with people, how I build relationships. I've been on a constant learning journey myself in terms of always learning something new for my work. So, you know, since I left the police service and since I started this job, I've taken about 3 or 4 different coaching qualifications. This year, I've just qualified as a social emotional intelligence specialist. You know, I've been on 2 or 3 speaker courses. I now run my own speaker courses. I look at what the industry is doing and things that don't resonate with me. I make sure that when I do it, those things are now built in so that I give even more value. I like to think outside of the box. I like to do things that other people aren't doing. You know, for example, with my speaker course, I now only put speakers from graduates from my speaker course onto my platform. It's a huge risk for me. So every January, when it comes to igniting a potential, I have had a lot of big name speakers asking me to go on the stage, and I keep saying no, because I only want my graduates to go on that stage because I want to give them that opportunity. And I think that sets me apart from what else is going on in the industry. And I think you have to be like that. You have to, A, come from your values, and B, be able to have that structured plan where you know what you're going to be doing. I have a book up there behind me from my mentor, John C. Maxwell, called Intentional Living. And I think that's what it's all about. When you have a plan, every single day has to be an intentional day. The things that you do, the conversations that you have, the times that you do certain things, all of that has to be done with a sense of intention, rather than just being busy, as you quite rightly said, rather than being busy and doing nothing. So when you're intentional, the beauty of that is you can actually end up doing more in less time.
Yes.
And that's what people don't get. That if you're multi tasking all over the place and spinning all these plates, part of the problem is that you spend so much time running in between the plates that you end up working 10, 12, 13, 14 hours. And then you look back at the end of the day and say, well, what have I actually achieved? I was very busy, but what did I achieve? Whereas if you're intentional, then actually in 6 or 7 hours, you could possibly achieve twice as much.
Yes. And out of interest, what were some of the key challenges that you experienced moving from a role where, you know, so you're managing an organization, you have lots of people there, and you're in this structured organization, to then your own thing? Because they are 2 very, very different skill sets. I mean, you have the leadership, obviously, which you've brought forth, and that's what you specialize in. But that transition there, because there'll be people watching this, you know, they're doing their job, they're doing their stuff, and they look at you and they think, number one, how on earth did you manage to make the jump? And number 2, to be very successful at it. Because often what makes you successful in one career, you can struggle with the career that you're in. So what are some of the key challenges that you face there, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I think one of the key challenges that I faced was the sense of loneliness. Yes. When in an organization where I was a recognized part of that organization, I sat at a certain level within that organization. I was at a very senior level within the organization. I had a team, I had a department of 300 people, 400 people at one point. I had my own PA, I had my own admin assistants, and I could pick up the phone and get someone to do this specialized piece of work. The biggest challenge, and it was a culture shock for me, the biggest thing was suddenly I was everything. I was all of those people that used to be my team. I was that, and so it was like an incredibly steep learning curve for me. Suddenly I had to manage my own diary. That was hard. Suddenly I had to write my own letters. Suddenly I had to, send off my own emails. I had to make sure I ate on time. My PA used to make sure I ate on time for once. I used to forget to eat. And even now, my wife came home today and she says, "Oh, did you eat anything?" And I suddenly realized, oh my goodness, I only had breakfast, So it's things like that. And I still struggle sometimes when I get really busy, but the journey softens out towards the end. It really does soften out. And suddenly you start realizing that you don't have to be that level of lonely. So I have a couple of strategies to prevent the concept of loneliness. And I speak on loneliness in leadership a lot. But how I overcome loneliness as a leader now is that firstly, I only connect deeply with those people who I have shared values with, people whose level of trust in me and my trust in them is non-negotiable, is not questionable. And we are at such a level where we're able to pick the phone up and say, "I'm struggling with this," or I'm feeling like this. And it's those moments are rare. And actually, I had one of those today where one of those people actually rang me. And, he's just been through some difficult times this year. I hadn't known, he hadn't mentioned it anywhere on social media, but he's been through some really difficult times. He's been through a health problem just lately, and he just rang me up out of the blue to let me know. So I dropped everything and we had a really healthy conversation for 45 minutes. So we don't have to be lonely in that sense. And the other thing is, we don't have to be an expert in everything. We really don't. So I want to play to my strengths. I know from what people have told me where my passion lies. What I enjoy doing is probably what I'm the best at anyway. I love public speaking. I love getting in front of a classroom and teaching and training. I love changing organizational cultures. I love getting onto my stage at Ignite Your Inner Potential and inspiring thousands of people. I love teaching people how to do public speaking. But that's all I need to do. That is my strength zone. And in any organization, when you have a weakness, people will say, "Oh, you're not very good at this area, so why don't you go and work with Joe Blogs and they will help you in that area." But actually, what we don't realize is by doing that, we're getting the person to focus in on their weak areas, and the perception of the weakness will grow in their own mindset. Yeah. Now I say I will only work in my strength areas. So even at Ignite Your Inner Potential, my wife runs, she's incredible. She runs a crew. She runs the logistics. I write I normally type up like a 10, 15 page sheet now with minute by minute what I need happening. And then I just hand it on to her. And do you know what? At the last Ignite Your Inner Potential, we didn't speak to each other all day. We're in the same room. I was doing what I was doing. She was doing what she was doing. And at the end of the evening, we hugged and we said, "Yeah, we did it. We did a good job." And it is that. Let other people take some of the burden, take some of the strain. And, a couple of days ago, I needed some editing on a video, and it would have taken me 3 or 4 hours. I got somebody on Fiverr to do it, Fiverr. I've not used it for a year or two, but then I just thought, why am I killing myself for 4 or 5 hours? I could be earning X amount of money, or I could be resting, or I could be having more time with my family. Why not spend $20? I think it cost me. And this guy did. Oh, I know what it was. I've got for all my speakers, I had their photographs, but I just wanted the shape of the face cutting out. So I could yes. Now that would take forever because it's so intricate. This guy had it done for me in 20 minutes and it cost me $20,
Yes. So just speaking of that, because I've certainly struggled, and I know a lot of the speakers and trainers that I've spoken to have also struggled with doing everything yourself to begin with, learning the ropes and realizing this clearly isn't our strengths. So what were some of the key things that you first started to outsource or to give to other people that allowed you to focus on your strengths more, especially when building like a sustainable business?
Yeah, great question. I guess the first biggest thing that comes to my mind was my book.
Yes.
I literally, with my book, I talked into my phone over a period of several days, but I needed to see that now in black and white in order for me to then start playing with it. So I remember I went onto a website. It was called something else at the time, but I think it's called Upworks now.
Mm.
But it was called something else at that time. I just sent it off to somebody. I spent, I don't know, I think it was $100 or something like that. They transcribed everything that I'd said. I then took that transcription. I went on holiday to Bali for 10 days, which was already pre-planned. I was supposed to be going to see Bali, but in actual fact, what happened was for 10 days straight, I sat in various hotels, just watching the world go by in this beautiful oasis of peace and tranquility. And I sat and edited the book, and I created the very first editable, formatted version of my book. And when I got back into this country, I had an expert then look at the formatting and the editing. And within a month or two, we'd self-published, and the book's done really, really well.
Amazing, fantastic. So one of the first steps, it seems, and I'm extrapolating from what you said here, is immersion in what your strengths are and giving yourself that time, and then leveraging it to other people. For those just starting on this journey, is there any specific people or things that you think they would need in order to leverage themselves more?
I think first and foremost, I truly believe that we've already got within us what we're looking for outside. I truly believe that. I call it my fourth quadrant thinking. So it goes back to the whole Johari's window. You have your first quadrant, which is all about the stuff that we know that we don't share with the outside world. And you have your second quadrant, the stuff that other people know about you that you don't know about yourself, that you also know. That's your open book. Then you have your blind spot, which is your third quadrant, and that's stuff that other people see in you that you don't see in yourself. And sometimes that can be a really powerful one, because if you don't believe in yourself, but somebody else believes in you, maybe you need to try and borrow their eyeballs a bit, because they're seeing something in you that you're not seeing. Yes. And you're stopping yourself from moving forward. But then the fourth quadrant is where the magic happens for me. And I call it literally fourth quadrant, but that's the area of your hidden potential. So I think first recognize that we've probably already got everything that we need inside of us already. We need to extrapolate it from outside of us. Yeah. So I know plenty of people who just dedicate their lives to going from one course to another course in university. And I've seen exactly the same thing happening in personal development. And you will have done exactly the same, Ben. You'll see this happening left, right, and center. I know coaches who literally go to every single seminar that's going. They rave about it. They become groupies of this person and that person and the other person. They will boast about how many books they've read. And let's be honest, how many books can you possibly read that tell you something different? Essentially, I've got all those books there. I could probably pick 5 books and that would be it. The rest I could throw away, because they all say the same thing. And yes, it's just people saying it in different ways. That's all it is. And I very often say there's nothing that I teach that is new. Nothing. There is nothing that is made by Kul Muhay, created by Kul Muhay, trademarked by Kul Muhay, that has come from Kul Muhay. All I'm doing is extrapolating all the stuff that I've ever learned in life, and I'm putting it in my language so it resonates with people who resonate with my language. It's as simple as that. So I don't think we should overcomplicate it. I think when we do overcomplicate it, it can only lead to one thing, that's procrastination. And you may find yourself in a position where 3 years' time, you're still going to those same events, same conferences, listening to the same people, if not different people, because you moved on from the original people. You're still frustrated in the life that you've got right now. You're still questioning yourself. Why am I not moving forward? Why is so-and-so doing better than I am? What secret have they got? And the only secret that they've got is that they've taken action.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think that the action is very important. I think a lot of people get stuck in, oh, I need to read more or learn more. And the truth is, yeah, it's so true. There are so many different books on the exact same subject that say the same thing. One says 7 steps, one's 5, one's 10, one's 11. It's just the same thing. It's hilarious.
I'm going to create a book on 15 steps. I've not seen one on 15 steps yet. So, hey.
And it's got an extra step, so it's obviously the better one. You know what I mean? Like, okay. So let's move on to leadership. So for the people watching this that want to start to be a leader in their life, right? What do you believe are the key traits of a leader in moving into 2020?
Okay. A really, really good question. I'm a very simple person in terms of, I'd like to break everything down to its very, very basic level. And I think with leadership, first we need to understand the definition of leadership. Because if you Google the word leadership, and I did the other day, you get something like 4.1 billion results back on Google. 4.1 billion in a world of nearly 8 billion at the moment. That means literally half the world is interested in leadership, right? That's the first important thing for us to note. The second thing is, if you look at the definition and Google the definition of leadership, it'll say something like the act of leading others or an organization, something like that. But I always think, well, if you have to use the word leading to describe the word leadership, it almost suggests to me that they don't understand what leadership means. So being a nonconformist, I came up with my own definition. This is what I believe a leader is. A leader is anybody who influences people or influences outcomes. Now, when you look at that definition, Ben, it pretty much means that every single person in life at some point in their life can be a leader.
Yes.
So once we understand that, and we understand there's a huge responsibility because of the authority that comes with leadership. You could be a leader because you're a parent, because you're a specialist in something, you're an expert in something, people come to you for advice, or you could be a leader because you're a senior manager in an organization. You could be a leader for a whole host of reasons. Maybe because you wear a certain uniform, so people on the street will say, oh, there's the park warden will know, etc., etc. So with that, there's an old saying, with great authority comes great responsibility. It's the responsibility aspect that I think really defines outstanding leaders. And I think the mark of an outstanding leader is not how good a leader you are, it's how many leaders you develop, because we're constantly on this conveyor belt of life. Yes. We come onto the conveyor belt at this point and we move along, and eventually we drop off. If we're not creating leaders behind us, then there's going to be no continuity of that conveyor belt. That's the first point I would make. But the second point, the future of leadership, I think the future of leadership is not in the technical skills that we have. It's not about the knowledge that we possess. It's not in the IQ that we have. It's not in the amount of exams that we've passed. It is in the simple art of building human relationships. It's all about human connectivity. That's what I believe is the future of leadership in this complex VUCA world in which we exist.
Yes. I think that many people get stuck in the internet of, I need to look like this person or look up to that person. And I think often people have a misconception that they have to look at someone and be more like that in order to be a leader. Whereas, as you've rightly mentioned, turning around and actually saying, who can I lead right now, actually allows you to take that action and become that leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's just about stepping up.
Yes.
When nobody else is stepping up around you, maybe you're the person that needs to step up. And if you are then going to step up, recognize that there are other human beings around you that you might then influence. And if you are going to influence those human beings, would you not rather influence them so that then when they walk away, they feel good? Or would you influence them so that they walk away and they feel bad? Because if they feel bad, whoever they then connect to, they're going to infect. Yeah. And, when I was a leader in the police service, whenever I took over every department, I used to get my senior leadership team together. And I used to say the same thing to every leader, every team. Always be careful what comes out of your mouth, because what comes out of your mouth for you as a human being might be nothing, might be meaningless. But to the people that work for you, it's almost as strong as the word of God. They can take that away with the perspective that they're taking it on board with. They can go away and infect their family with it, their friends with it, their relatives with it. That's the gravitas of being a leader. So I always want people to be left with the right impression, with the right feeling, so that that's how you create that ripple effect of positivity.
Yes.
And that, I think, is a job of a leader. And I think more and more and more now, in this very fast, dynamic, um, incredibly connected world, digitally connected world, we're losing the art of relationship building. We
Yes.
go to networking events, businesses are encouraged to go to networking events. I don't go to any. I've been to many, but I found that there was no real relationships being built. It was these professional, shallow, very fragile relationships that were being connected, just so that you could boost the amount of people that you have on your social media or on your phone book, on your phone, but I would rather connect with, say, 10 people at a very deep level, and people who would then help you, refer to you, and that you could also refer on to. That's a depth of relationship, and the deeper the relationship is, the more you're going to get back from it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that the world has focused on width instead of depth. And it's actually something that I teach a lot of my trainers, is that we want to have depth, not width, because then you can actually genuinely develop a relationship with someone on a deep level, as opposed to these surface level connections that many people have, where you're never going to do anything for these people. Like, you don't really know really what they do. So when we look into business ownership, right? Because a lot of leaders, they own businesses. There'll be people watching this that want to own a business, right? What do you think is the biggest factor preventing successful business ownership?
I think mindset has got to be there. We have to talk about mindset. Mindset is the foundation of everything for me anyway.
Yes.
That inner dialogue, managing that inner dialogue, and firstly, to become that level of self-aware. This is the first step of emotional intelligence anyway, self-awareness. To get to that level of self-awareness where you are aware of the language that comes in, those sentences that drop in out of nowhere. Suddenly they'll drop in, I'm not good enough. They'll drop in, I can't do this. They'll drop in, I haven't got the experience. They'll drop in, I need to go on another course. Those are the sentences that you need to then challenge. I call it policing your mind, because I was a police officer. I'll use a police analogy. So I said, I'm always policing my mind. I'm looking for these little devious sentences somewhere in the crux of my brain, somewhere waiting to come out, like a latent bug or something like that. And it's so true though. If you I had tuberculosis back in 1990, and it was described to me as this latent parasitic bug that we have. So when you at your most tired, that's when it comes alive. It remains dormant up to that. And so much of these thoughts are like that. When things are going good, you don't think these things, but the moment things aren't going so good, suddenly they creep out, because they see that you're weak. So we need to police our mind. And then the second part of it is all around evidence for me. I would never take a case to court unless there was at least 51% chance of a successful conviction. That is the way the law operates in the UK. So we were always looking for evidence, and we had something called the best evidence rule. So you look for the best evidence that's possible to make sure that you can prove whether this person is guilty or not guilty. So I apply the same technique to my own thinking. The moment I find one of these thoughts, I will challenge it and say, where is your evidence to tell me that I'm not good enough? Yes. Tell me right now all the times that I've not been good enough. And the phenomenal thing is, more often than not, you can't find the evidence. Yes. Yet if you flip it and say, tell me a time when I was good enough, then suddenly all this evidence comes out. I was good enough to pass my driving test. I was good enough to pass my degree. I was good enough to get into the police service. I was good enough to get promoted, good enough to become a senior. And suddenly you realize, wow, so I was good enough to do all of these things. And I bet you before that, I thought I wasn't good enough. So then I proved myself wrong. So if I've proved myself wrong so many times, maybe I can prove myself wrong again. And I think, for me, if I were to go back and talk to myself only 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, when I was going on this journey, that's one of the things I would tell myself. Don't get sucked in by what other people are saying to you that then causes you to doubt yourself. Have a level of belief in yourself. Look for the evidence. Don't just have a blanket belief in yourself. Look for the evidence so it becomes much more structured and much more foundational within yourself. I think that's one of the biggest things I would teach myself.
Yes, and I think what's beautiful about the words that you're using is that everything that you're portraying, you're using the experience that you've had previously in the police. So, you know, policing your mind and the evidence procedure. And for those watching here, I really want you to know that for those transitioning to another industry, you need to use what you already have and have a transferable skill, because, you know, you've been a leader for decades. It's not as if you just started at that point, because you've already had so many skills, so many experiences. And I think it's really important for those watching to really acknowledge the skills and the examples that you can see within yourself where you're already good enough, where you're already at a high enough level, and use that to be able to move forward. So, you know, thank you very much for
I think that's such an important point. And, you know, for those first 2 years, Ben, for some reason or another, you know, when I was doing public speaking, I used to shy away from using any examples from the police service whatsoever. And somebody once said to me, well, you had 32 years of depth, of real experience of life that, you know, like only a fraction of society ever gets to see.
Yes.
For you to share that from the stage would be even more powerful. So then I did start sharing it. I've had audiences in tears.
Yes.
I've had audiences laughing. I've had audiences walking away saying, my goodness, I've never heard it put like that before. So that's what can happen. It doesn't matter whether you were in the police service or whether you were in the paper industry. It really doesn't matter. You will have some unique experiences that have actually now calculated into wisdom. And it's that wisdom that you need to share with the world. And, you know, it's a powerful thing to do.
Yes. And when you're, you know, working with these people, right? So we've spoken about mindset. What are some of the key strategies or the key ways in which you work with business owners or people that are starting their own business? What are some of the key things that you look for or help them with to allow them to, you know, have those bumps in success? Because you're obviously very successful with what you do with the referral basis. So what are some of those key things that you put in place?
Well, one of the key things is, you know, we go back to planning. Many people fail because they haven't got a plan in place at all.
Yes.
I was watching, I don't know if you have Dragon's Den over in LA. It's a program here in the UK. I think it's called Shark Tank.
Shark Tank is the other one, yeah.
So I was just watching a couple of episodes, not a couple of episodes, a couple of excerpts of that. I was watching a couple of people pitching. And so these people were coming up and they were pitching to these highly successful dragons, as they're called, to invest in their money for a percentage share of their company. And there was a guy that was pitching for $2 million of equity for a 20% share in his company. And then one of the dragons said, okay, so I've listened to what you have to say. So where would you spend the £2 million? What would you do with the $2 million that we're going to give to you? And he said, I need a new website, fundamental to the business. And because the website would need to have a complex backend, that is probably about £40,000-50,000. He says, okay, so that's £40,000-50,000. What about the other $1,950,000? What would you do with that? He says, and he was stumped. He had no idea. He says, so why would I give you any money when you have no plan? And so that's the first thing I would do, is help the owners to create a plan.
Yes.
Actually, there's a step before that. They need to understand what it is that they want to do as well. So, you know, I was working with a client the other day, and I call myself the immersion coach because I don't like working for an hour and then go away for 2 weeks and come back for another hour. I don't work like I work straight on my first session for 8 to 10 hours. And we need to go in deep. So we have to explore your values, who you are, what defines you, what identifies you. And then we need to explore what it is that you're wanting to do. So we need to get to a level of clarity. And it's only when you've got clarity can you actually start moving forward. It's a bit like if you get into your car and you're heading for, you're driving from LA and you're trying to get to New York, but you don't put your satellite navigation system on, you're going to get lost. You're not going to know where you're going to go, right? So absolute clarity on the goal that you want to get to. And then it is about, okay, now that we understand that, we need to do some reverse engineering. Yes. And it's a reverse engineering that I think is very, very critically important, because if we continue to look at this 2 or 3 year goal, which is way up there and it's massive, it's huge, it's like a mountain that's standing in front of us, we can suffer from overwhelm. Yes. Because we'll think, how can I possibly scale that? But when you say, well, I need to get to base camp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I need to take these steps, suddenly each step seems so much more doable. So we'll work back and we'll create monthly action plans, maybe even weekly action plans, which is what I did with myself after I dissolved my business and restarted. I created weekly action plans, but based on an annual goal and then a 3-year strategy. And that's what I do with business owners.
Yes, fantastic. So that reverse engineering, I think, is of fundamental importance. I know we hear a lot of, okay, visualize what you want, set that goal. And then so many people get so intimidated and they never reverse engineer it. So they actually don't know the fundamental key steps they need to take in order to make it happen. So whilst we're on those fundamentals, right, you've achieved something amazing with your event in that you're practically doubling the audience each year. So for those wondering, from the specific side of things, how have you managed to do that?
I used to wonder myself how I did that, to be honest. And I put it down to pure idiotic passion.
Pure idiotic passion. That's what we like. So for anyone listening, that's what you need.
Yeah, I just call it PIP, pure idiotic passion. But actually, there's more of a strategy behind it now. So each year I'll do something different. So I'll have the fundamental goal of increasing by at least 50%. So the minimal increase every year is 50%. The idea is, in 5 years' time, that I have one of the biggest personal development events in the UK that people travel to from around the world to my little city of Derby, where we've got 5,000 or 6,000 people, and they get inspired. They don't set New Year's resolutions. I'm actively against New Year's resolutions. That's why I created the event in the first place. They set sticky goals that they will keep to, and we've had huge success stories. So I have that level of clarity that I want that, and so that's my fundamental. So every year, then I'm focusing on the how, and that's again coming back to the plan. What do I need to do differently this year in order for me to accelerate from last year? So I'll do all the things that I did last year because they worked, obviously, for that size of an audience. But in order for me to take it to the next level, I have to do more things. So for example, this year I've hired a PR agency. So we've got a three-month PR strategy going on. We've been featured in a lot of the press at the moment, which is great. Some of the success stories from Ignite. I've just come back from a podcast interview for my local city, which is quite a popular podcast. And that came as a result of the PR. I have got a social media ad campaign that's been planned and it's been tested. So we're doing that. My referral network is much stronger every year. My referral network grows. I have my graduates who speak on the stage. There's a strategy behind that in terms of the graduates bring extra people with them as well, because it's a very proud moment for them to be seen on stage in front of 450 people. So I'm very confident this year we're going to make 450. Next year, I'll just start everything slightly earlier. We may try to get into mainstream media in terms of television next year. I'm thinking about doing billboard campaigns next year because I want to raise the awareness to that level. So I'm going to be talking to a couple of advertising agencies about having billboard campaigns, good old-fashioned marketing that I think still works.
Yes.
People see it, people notice it as they're shopping, and we're going to add the new element of SEO and Facebook ads and maybe even LinkedIn ads and all of this kind of stuff. So these are the kind of things, some of the things that we're doing.
Yes. And for those listening, I really want to portray something, and that is the amount of different strategies that Kul has. And I think that's so important because very often we think this is the strategy, and you hear so many experts, it's Facebook ads, it's LinkedIn ads, it's billboard, whatever it is. And it's so important to, spread, diversify, and allow you to build up that way so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket, and you really diversify yourself out to different places.
I think that's a really important point, Ben. And you will know this, that and it's a danger point for anyone who's new into business and trying to get into business. You'll go onto one course and that person there will say LinkedIn is the way to do everything. It will sort your life out. Get onto LinkedIn, it'll sort everything out for you. Or then you'll go to the next person and they'll say, don't worry about the rest of the world. Facebook ads is where you need to be. And you'll go to the next person and they'll talk about Instagram. You'll go to the next person, they'll talk about SEO. And, you know, and if you just put all your eggs into one basket and that basket does not work for you, then suddenly you're broke. It's not happening for you. You're going to get fed up. So for me, it's about sort of testing one strategy against another. So I'm constantly testing, constantly looking, where is my audience showing up more? Is it on LinkedIn or is it on Facebook? Now, I also understand that I have two different audiences here. So for my, I actually essentially have three different audiences. So for my Ignite Your Inner Potential, that is Joe Blogs. Anybody on the street can come in, bring your family, bring your children, bring your grandparents. We've had 3 generations there. So I price it so it's affordable as well. And I over deliver. I make sure they're fed. We even have a vegan option. We have a separate vegan menu. We over deliver constantly. My crew will meet every single person at the door, walk them to their tables. We have it cabaret style every single year, so people have tables. We even, for one Muslim family, we had one member from one Muslim family out of 300 people who needed to pray. We had a prayer room ready for them. You know, it's getting it down to that level of minutiae. So I price it accordingly to that audience. But then I have my public speaking audience, which is a much more affluent, much more discerning audience. And, you know, for my public speaking, I've just moved to a 4-star hotel next year and they're going to have access to the swimming pool, the spa facilities, all of this kind of stuff. You need to just be aware of that. And then I have my LinkedIn audience, which is my corporate audience. This is all the organizations that I go into to help them to create emotionally intelligent cultures and leaders within the organization. Well, they're on LinkedIn, they're hanging around on LinkedIn, and they speak a slightly different language. So it's just about understanding that every single platform is good, but no one single platform is everything.
Yes, it's so true. You've got to find out that market. So out of interest, just while we're speaking about these different market segments, right? When you first started setting up your business, you've got a few different type of clients that you would attract for your one-on-one coaching versus your events versus the like Ignite Your Inner Potential and your speaking one. So how do you as a leader cater to all these different types of people whilst not being generic?
Yeah, good point. So one of the things that I do, I know that well, the first point I'll make, Ben, is I didn't always know my audience. And I think that's so critical. You know, everybody, some people will just want to be everything to everyone. You can't do that. You really do have to niche in. So when people talk about niching, it's so very important. But I would go one step further and say you need to micro niche. You really need to, I would far rather be a big fish in a tiny pool than being a small fish in a big pond, in a big sea. I really would. So what I do now is when I talk about leadership, I don't talk about leadership per se. I talk about leadership and emotional intelligence. That is where my strengths lie. That is where my passion, absolute passion lies. So I even look to see the personalities of the individuals that I connect with on LinkedIn. There's a great tool for that. So every time you look at somebody's profile, it can pop up and you can do a quick personality profile on that individual. You know what personality types they are, what behavioral types they are, what language they speak.
What's that tool called?
It's called Crystal Knows. Crystal Knows.
Crystal Knows. Okay.
Phenomenal. Seriously, phenomenal piece of software. Only works on LinkedIn, by the way. So I use that software. So I only connect with people who are similar to me.
Yes.
People who are empaths, people who will resonate with me. So that's how I segment that market. So when I have a conversation with them, we're coming from a similar standpoint. Yeah. When it comes to the create and speak market, I know I can speak their language. I know who they are now. And the strange thing is, I even know which market segment they come from now. I know that most of the people who want to come to my create and speak program this year have been successful property entrepreneurs. And I have no idea how and why that's happened, but I seem to be appealing. I would say about 70% of the people that have come on my public speaking program this year have been successful property entrepreneurs, you know, 7-figure property entrepreneurs. And I'm thinking, okay, So I've ended up going to speak at many high-level property entrepreneurship meetings. I'm not a property entrepreneur, but they resonate with me. I resonate now with them. I understand their language. I understand their needs. And you need to do this with your clients. You need to know what your clients' pain points are, what they want, and where they're coming from, where they are right now. And for the Ignite Your Potential, that I guess is the only place where I don't really have a micro niche, but this is for the people, everyday people out there, because this is my one event where I want to create that ripple effect across communities. So anybody is welcome.
Yes.
Anybody is welcome to Ignite Your Potential.
Yeah. And I think
I tend to attract a certain type even at that level.
And I think what's most important for the people listening is that it's, and you may agree with this, or you may not. I'm just saying from the words and the language that you've used, is that you see the type of person you attract and you micro niche accordingly, as opposed to picking, this will be the pond that I'll be in for the rest of my life. Is that correct?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And it's
I don't know. I know people talk about micro niching all the time, and I don't know how you can micro niche from the outset. I really don't.
Yes. Yes.
Because what happens if you get that wrong? Then you're gonna have to micro niche somewhere else. So what you're doing, you're jumping like this. So at least it's about gradually bringing it down, you know, and you're more able to pick from that smaller pond. Okay, it's this group of people that I need. It's a bit like that for me.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. And it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. They say, oh yeah, I've got a niche. I don't know what my niche is. And often the analogy I use is, if you've never played football before, you don't know the position that you like. So you've got to play a couple and see what you enjoy. And especially online, you know, you want to find out who that person is attracted to you in order to really move you forward. So actually, out of interest, for someone listening to this, they're just starting that entrepreneurial journey. What would be the sort of last golden nugget that you would give them? Because we've covered so much. What would be one golden nugget that you wish you had when you first started, that you could give the gift to someone else right now?
If I could gift something to someone right now, if I were talking to myself 5 years ago, just as I was about to start the entrepreneurial journey, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 things to myself. The first thing I would say to myself is, you have more in you right now than you give yourself credit for. That's the first thing I would say. Yes. The second thing I would say is, pick only 1 or 2 courses that you really need to go on to take your business to the next level. What are the 2 or 3 key things that you need to learn, you absolutely need to learn to take your business to the next level if you were to be really serious with yourself? And the third thing I would say is, surround yourself with the people who are going to push you in the right direction, not the people who are going to pull you back. And that is all about values. It's about mindset. It's about what other people are projecting onto you. So it just takes me back to the Jim Rohn quote. You know, you become the average of the 5 people whose company you keep most. So be very clear about the 5 people who are in your life more than anybody else. Yes. Who are you talking to more than anybody else? And you need to be almost ruthless with this. And I've been ruthless with this in terms of even family and old friends. That's not to say I've cut them off. Yes, I have cut some people off because I realized their values just didn't align with mine, full stop. But other people who are near to me, close to me, you know, what I've done is distance myself slightly. Only so much as the people who are the top 5 people who I talk to more than anybody else, they resonate more with me and they align with my values more and they push me more. My wife is one of my biggest fans. Every time I can't cope with a limiting belief in my head, and every time I say something stupid like, I don't know if I could do that. I mean, last night I was invited to host a charity event. It was a high-end charity event, gala dinner in Birmingham last night for orphans in Pakistan. And I was asked to host it, compare it, and they said, can you also do the fundraising element, an auction? And I remember saying to my wife last night, I've never done this before. This for me is like brand new. I've done so much speaking, but I've never, ever done this. I said, I don't think I can do this. And she said, look, why do you say this? Every time you're doing something new, you say something stupid like, I don't know if I can do this. And yet you prove yourself wrong every single time.
Yes.
Why don't you wait to see whether you've done it or not, and then say to me, I didn't do that very well. Why don't you just do that? I thought to myself, do you know what? She's absolutely right. And do you know what happened, Ben? At the end of the evening, through the auction and the fundraising, we raised just under £30,000.
Wow.
And the feedback that I've had has just been incredible. So we have more in us than we give ourselves credit for. And it's because I had the right people around me that I even got onto the stage in the first place. Yeah. So those are my 3 nuggets of gold, if you like.
Amazing. You over-delivered with 3. We only asked for 1.
All about over-delivery. Always over-deliver. That's the 4th thing. Always over-deliver.
It's the 4 steps, right? Not 3, not 2.
Yeah, 4 steps. We've got another 9 steps to go because I'm going to write a book about the 15 steps, right?
That's fine. We'll put them together and we'll add a bonus one at the end as well. They're not expecting to, just to really differentiate it. So for the people listening, right, how do they stay in contact with you? Yeah, you're obviously a very excitable guy. There's loads of different things going on. How does someone really connect if they want to build a deep relationship with you, or they want to know what it's like to work with you? What are some of the best platforms?
Well, listen, you can connect. I'm all over the place, all over social media. So you can find, and it's quite boring. It's just my name, Kul Muhay. So you can find me on Facebook, Kul Muhay. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kul Muhay. Look for my website, kulmuhay.com, surprisingly enough.
I was shocked with that one. I thought it was going to be something different.
Instagram. In fact, I'm quite excited because I'm just about to start a new website called igniteyourpotential.com. So I'm quite excited about that. I'm going to keep my personal brand, but all the Ignite services, we've got somebody only working on it from yesterday. So that'll be up and running in a few short weeks, I'm hoping, but that'll be the next website. We've got some exciting work. You know, I never thought, I haven't shared this with you yet, Ben, and I may as well share.
Sure.
This is what can happen when you just go and follow your passion, but have some sense of structure behind it and be intentional every single day and build deep relationships. I've just read today a script for a drama that is being written by a screenwriter. And it was inspired by a conversation that I had with him at a party where I said, I'm so fed up of the unrealistic police dramas. And wouldn't it be a really cool drama to have something that's so raw and real about a senior Asian police officer who has stopped drinking and is a senior detective and is struggling to fit his values in with the organization that he's in. So essentially it's a loosely based on my story. So we're just working on that script. And I've just had a meeting with one of the major TV channels in the UK about having a series going forward, looking at iconic crime and things like that. So amazing things can happen. You just have to allow them to happen. You have to be a willing receptacle, you know, you have to be open to it. And if you close yourself off to yourself and to the rest of the world, it's not going to happen.
Thank you for listening to another Entrepreneur Lifestyle podcast. Subscribe for more episodes like this and make sure to leave a 5-star review so that we can keep impacting entrepreneurs around the world, just like yourself. If you know anyone that would benefit from listening to this episode, please send it to them so that together as entrepreneurs, we can develop our businesses whilst living a lifestyle we truly enjoy. See you next time, and remember, you are awesome. Thank you for listening.